To scrutinize new technology like artificial intelligence does not inherently imply that someone is technophobic. I've been talking about AI a lot recently, specifically more like LLMs, generative AI, and conversational agents and things like that. And I have gotten some responses from folks claiming that I am fear-mongering, I am a technophobe, or some sort of Luddite. And I want to just get this straight. You can be skeptical. You can deeply consider the implications of technology without being afraid of it. AI is not inherently moral or immoral. Rather, the actors behind the tool are moral or immoral, right? So when I'm talking about a lot of these ethical concerns that I have about the ubiquitous deployment of AI, what I'm really talking about and what I'm really critiquing are the companies and the agents behind this technology that is being pushed in our faces every single day. AI itself is not necessarily good or bad, right? It can be used for amazing application like medical advancement, things of that nature. And it can also be used for horrible things like deepfake pornography. It can be used to perpetuate biases against marginalized communities. And it can simultaneously potentially help with climate initiatives. When I'm talking about AI, I'm really kind of targeting the bad actors behind this mass deployment of AI. Because what I'm seeing is this attempt to optimize every single facet of our lives such that the human parts of our day-to-day world are being taken over by AI and this false promise of eternal efficiency. I am not technophobic. I am tech bro-phobic. And something I have been thinking about deeply that is always on my mind is how technology can kind of quietly diminish our agency. If you occupy any time on the internet, you will see that there are AI suggestions everywhere. Here on YouTube, for example, when I am going through comments from all of my lovely subscribers, I will often get suggestions from an AI tool telling me what I could or should say in response, which I find to be abhorrent. I want to be here to connect with you, right? I want to be here to talk to other humans and share ideas, even if that means disagreement. Because I think that discourse is a huge way to kind of change minds and address our ideas and our opinions and find the flaws in our arguments so that we can improve upon them moving forward and just have like a more well-rounded, holistic understanding of whatever it is that we're talking about. Being on a platform like this and getting AI suggestions for what I should say in response to comments, I don't get it. I don't understand. The whole premise of creating content is to engage with other people. But this is a perfect example of how we are being funneled through this tunnel of optimization, right? Where we are told that if you're going to make content, the objective behind that shouldn't be to have a meaningful exchange with other human beings. It shouldn't be the exchange of ideas. Instead, it should be numbers, right? You should optimize your channel. You should have lots of views. You should have lots of engagement. And if you don't have those things, don't worry. There are tons of AI tools that will assist you in accomplishing that objective. I find this deeply problematic because every space that we look right now that should be human focused is being taken over by these sort of insidious incentives of these very affluent tech bros. I am not afraid of AI. In fact, I use it frequently because a number of the tools that I rely on to accomplish my day-to-day work are integrated with AI now, right? It's inescapable in a lot of ways, especially if you work in tech, which I do. I am not afraid of technology. I am afraid of the incentives behind the push for making this shit so ubiquitous, and it's driving me crazy. Another really good example of this kind of optimizing ourselves to death thing that I'm talking about is the process of applying for a new job. So if you're on LinkedIn, for example, you're probably inundated already with AI posts about AI, in favor of AI, but you might come across a job listing you're interested in. So you go to apply, you read through the listing, and it's abundantly clear that the listing was written by ChatGPT. So what do? You ask ChatGPT yourself to strengthen your cover letter and optimize your resume so that you flag the right words in the algorithm that you know your application is going to be filtered through in the first place. Maybe if you're lucky, you end up getting a response, or maybe you're unfortunate enough to get a rejection email that was also written by AI. So this whole process, as you can see, is very inhuman. And what if you applied for a role to be like a social worker or a philanthropist of some sort? You want to give back to your community. You want to work in a very human-centered field, but it's been demeaned down to this back and forth, optimized, efficient, delving into bullshit that doesn't actually mean anything to any of us, right? So I guess my argument is that we are optimizing ourselves to a point that is no longer relevant. So some people will say, well, Abigail, if you're hesitant around using AI, you're going to be obsolete in your field one day because these tools aren't going away. AI's not going away. I'm well aware that it's not going away because, again, I work in tech, so I'm not oblivious to the fact that this stuff is being used across industries. So like I said, I'm not not using it at all. Rather, I'm very selective about when and how I choose to use it based on my own sort of ethical guidance in my life, right? Like my own moral compass. If you optimize everything to such the extent that all internet content becomes flattened, it's all just regurgitations of the same ideas, of the same language, of the same imagery, the same objective, which seems to just be profit over fucking everything. If that is this consistent messaging that we're all receiving, suddenly it doesn't stand out anymore. If your company is trying to get, you're trying to recruit employees, and your job listing reads exactly the same as all the other listings in your industry, you're not going to find top talent. You're going to find some person who's like, I fucking need a job. I don't really care about this company. And more we get away from this human-centered society. So getting back to this whole technophobia thing, I just want to kind of point out that people will use this language as an insult. They'll hurl it at me. It's supposed to hurt me that I am skeptical of technology. But I find this really interesting because to be hesitant around the deployment of tools that were created and deployed by very affluent people who have a lot of political sway and a lot of underlying intentions we don't fully understand seems like a rational approach to something. To me, it seems irrational to simply accept something because the people around you are accepting it. This kind of ties directly to what I was saying earlier about diminished agency. So obviously, in order to make money to afford to pay your bills and take care of your life and buy groceries, you need to have a source of income. So for most of us, that means we have jobs. And maybe you don't fully agree with the work that you have to do, right? It's like the classic moral dilemma. The family with 3 kids is unable to find any other work. So dad has to take a job working for the Department of Defense, even though you're against warfare, whatever. But now in this instance, we're all constantly being presented with the same kind of moral dilemma. We know that these tools perpetuate bias. We know that these tools are being used for unsavory means, right? People making deepfake content, whether it is political, pornographic, or otherwise, that can result in a lot of harms to society at large. We know that AI requires extensive resources. In fact, I just read a study from Penn State University that stated 20% of all electricity by the year 2030 may be used just for AI, just for data centers for AI. That is staggering and very concerning. So we know there are environmental implications. We see that the internet is becoming so saturated by garbage and AI slop that it's largely uninhabitable for creative people. We see that media is changing dramatically, not just the news, but also movies and television shows and the things that we read, right? There are articles out there that are entirely written and edited by AI. There are actresses out there who are AI, who are signed on contracts or labels or however the fuck that works. I don't really know how that works. But there are AI people who are doing human work, AI companions. I mean, I could go on and on and on about all of these applications of artificial intelligence that are obviously harmful to society. So when somebody presents this idea that technophobia is bad or stupid or you're going to be obsolete, you're stupid, you're irrelevant. It's no, we should all be really deeply considering these things. We have impact, right? We are moral agents. We get to choose whether or not we participate in certain aspects of society based on whether or not we deem them permissible. And I think that largely the application of AI in current society is not really permissible. We are stealing work from artists and musicians and writers and so forth. We are flattening the human language. We are seeing an increase in children and young people having devastating consequences for their education, their memory, their retention. Something that I actually learned about earlier this week, I forget what the phenomenon is called, where like as you're scrolling through content, for example, short form content, say you watch 3 or 4 reels in a row, by the time you get to the 4th reel, you probably don't even remember what the second one was. And so this sort of content oversaturation, slop myopia is catalyzing a form of amnesia for all of us. My guess is that the internet is just going to continue to become more and more and more full of crap, AI crap. I don't know. I feel like we all have skin in the game, right? We all have a say in the outcome of our society. And maybe it's only a little tiny bit. Maybe we only have a little tiny bit of agency when it comes to adopting new technology and what we deem as permissible in our society. I am not a millionaire, nor am I a billionaire. So I don't really have that much power. But I think that if we consider where we're willing to sort of draw a line and say, hey, you know, if I'm going to use this technology, maybe I have to use it for work for these particular tasks. And then that's where I draw the line. I don't want to use these tools for things that could potentially perpetuate bias, that could perpetuate violence against marginalized groups, that could perpetuate a decline in critical thinking skills, a decline in people's reading comprehension. I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like that's fear-mongering. It seems to me that that is an understanding that there are consequences to things. I mean, do we not see a very measurable distinction between pre-smartphone times and post-smartphone times? Is it not abundantly clear that we've all filled our brains with rot and slop? I just don't understand, like, people who want to act like AI is the future and it's going to fix everything. Maybe I believed that initially when the promise was a cure to cancer, and the promise was mitigated climate change, and the promise was new technologies that would make all of our lives better. But here we are, still unable to afford shit, still sick, still depressed, still chronically online, still misinformed, unable to discern truth from fiction. Is it really helping? Are you making more money because of AI? Are you happier because of AI? Truly? I mean, I'm sure some of you are. Some of you probably are. That if I'm speaking for myself, I feel more frustrated because of AI. I feel like as an artist, as a music producer, as a writer, as someone who cares deeply about the future of the planet and my fellow humans, I feel concerned. I feel really concerned. There is so much that could be said about diminished agency and how our autonomy is sort of infringed upon by this waterfall of sorts of new technology and AI being implemented by companies and our jobs and the tools we use and the platforms we engage with. And I just want to ask why. Because I don't think the reason is really truly that it's making us more efficient or more intelligent or faster. Because I've had to do rework. I've used ChatGPT and its outputs are often trash, sometimes just entirely incorrect. You know, I've had to use some of these image generating AI tools and it looks like shit. Like it doesn't look good. So I don't know. What are we doing? Like, what are we actually doing? And like, you can come at me all you want. Tell me I'm a technophobe. Tell me I'm a Luddite. Tell me that I'm stupid. Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Tell me that I need to be more nuanced in when I'm saying AI versus LLM versus Gen AI versus AGI. Blah, blah, blah. I don't fucking care. I am here as a human telling you as a human that you should probably give a little bit more of a shit about the tools you use, why you use them, and think about the incentives behind them. How did you end up on YouTube in the first place? Why are you using YouTube? Why are you on your smartphone? Because some profit-driven motive pushed it on all of us, right? And so now here we are paying for these services, using these tools. And if you're not paying for it, you are the product. And we know that. I know some of you are going to disagree with what I have to say. And I just want to reiterate that there is so much nuance to this topic. There is so much nuance to my own opinion about this subject, and often my opinion is changing, but this is how I feel today in this moment. I just want to kind of end this with a quick ask from you all. I am about a week away from presenting a project I've been building about AI ethics, particularly in its application to warfare, surveillance via smart cities, and medical triage. And my beta version was just published, and I'm seeking a few more beta testers So I'm just throwing this out there. If you're interested in testing my project, it is accompanied by a short survey. The course takes about 15 minutes to go through, and it's an immersive, kind of simulated learning environment intended to kind of marry instructional strategies with philosophy. So if you're interested, I would greatly appreciate some feedback. And as always, thank you for being here. Please consider subscribing if you are interested in this. And I'm going to save the rest of my yapping for another video. I love you all.